listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today, man, we have a true honor talking to a music guest for us today. We have the one and only James A. Norkawich, and man, we're going to talk about his amazing album that's coming in August. It's Lighthouse, but we're also going to be talking about a current single that he has, You Amaze Me, and we're also going to have his backstory of his music career, him as a person. So first, James, I want to welcome you to the show and say, how you doing, man?
Hey, man, how you doing? Pleasure to be here, and pleasure that we were able to talk all things music.
Yeah, man. I heard in the green room that you were in Radio Land, too, so this is going to be the easiest interview in the world, man. So first and foremost, give us a little bit of your backstory. What inspired you to launch your music career?
Well, I started when I was 3 years old, and, my parents were heavily listened to music. My grandfather played by ear, and I had that from an early age. I had that bug, so to speak. I wanted to be able to play and create and do something different. And then throughout the years, it went from piano to organ, back to piano, and then having the opportunities at a very young age through my grandfather and through, all the different resources around me. My parents really, did their best effort to back anything that I wanted to do. It was never pushed, and everything was at my speed. And when I got into high school, I was blessed and just fortunate enough to become part of this after school program, kind of like that fame school of music. They had music, they had dance, and there I started to hone in my craft as learning jazz, taking the R&B and the pop and everything else that I knew growing up, and now developing into this new art form, and through professors and teachers in the industry. And pretty much from there, my undergraduate and graduate was at the same place that I actually was taking my high school classes, and I had gotten a scholarship for undergrad and graduate. And then really from there, it's what you get out of it is what you put into it, and working in a studio, the Carriage House Studios in Stamford, Connecticut, where you're 2 houses away from, at that time, Tommy Mottola and Mariah Carey, where they lived, and working with artists that were just, mind-blowing, that were innovative, that made you think and create, to working with some big names. Spyro Gyra had a gig with Chicago as a fill-in, which that was exciting, and also Tower of Power. But then also going on the opposite end of things, of being in the music ministry, for 15 to 17 years, you learn to develop all sorts of ideas, original, not original, and you're able to, use them to the best of your advantage.
With your resume and with your experience, not just in the industry, but like you mentioned, being in ministry as well, what were some of the valuable lessons that you learned that allowed you to grow into the artist you are today?
Always be true to yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Of course, when the pandemic began, it was a chance for most people. They couldn't get used to sitting with their family or their loved ones. For me, it was an opportunity to really begin to think. And again, like that old adage, to thyself be true. Always, never be afraid to just step out of the box. If you think something doesn't feel right, it's probably right. then again, I'll never forget this as well. This was told to me by he's a world renowned bass player and teacher. He lives here in Connecticut. His name is Brian Torf. He told us when we were in high school, and this is applicable to anyone, any instrument, and no matter what you do, if you, for example, as a musician, if you're not listening to music or I should say, if you're not playing for a period of time, always keep listening, because what you're doing is you're keeping those thoughts, you're keeping those ideas fresh. And when you listen and you're not playing, but you're listening, your mind starts to get in a pattern where it opens up and checks things out. You're really basically doing a self-analyzation of, how can I do this different? How can I do that different? And, I tell someone, if you're not playing, if you're not practicing, if you're just picking an instrument up, don't get discouraged. The thing is, go online, pick up a piece of vinyl. Vinyl's back, old school's new school again, and it's like, when you're constantly listening, you're always going to be able to be innovative, rethink, and recreate things. So that when you do step back on your instrument, you're going to do things that you didn't even know you were capable of.
It's almost like, if you want to use another metaphor, it's like if you drive the same route every day, well, if you switch it up one day, you might find a new place to eat. You might find just other places.
Yeah, I mean, like that. And I know I'm sounding like a song with every word, but it's truly, life is a highway. If you take a left, you may find a side road and discover something you never discovered before. And if you travel to another state or travel to another country, you're going to notice the things that are around you that are different, and you're going to be like, wow, I never saw a sunset the same way. I never saw the water flow the same way. Now, we all know we've seen it a million times, but it's how we perceive it. It's how we choose to look at things. And, that's what really happened with the pandemic is, you start to begin to look at things and you begin to say, wait a minute, everything that I thought I knew, I didn't know anymore, but I have this in mind and I have that in mind. And then when you go to put it down, in the studio, it's like a fountain. It just keeps flowing and flowing. And then, I'm blessed to say that it hasn't, the ideas haven't stopped flowing. So, that's why we just got to keep this going and keep things moving.
You listen to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, James A. Norkawich. You can go to his website, jamesanorkawich.com, and we're talking about his album that's coming out in August. It's going to be awesome. You want to, keep in mind to really follow him on social media so that way when it's out, you can go get it. But it's Lighthouse album that's coming out in August. So tell us a little bit about what, if you have one, what's the theme for this project, and what's some of the things people can appreciate when they listen to you?
Well, Lighthouse is as you know, the symbol of a lighthouse is, or the biblical representation of it is like a, it's the light leading you back home. And, you don't have to be any particular faith to understand this album. It encompasses a, pop genre called classical crossover, where there's classically trained artists, operatic vocalists, one that's going to be on this album working in a pop kind of song. it reaches to the heart. It tells a story. Each track is, although different from the next, it tells of a journey. So when you go on vacation, first thing is like, okay, what do you do? Well, once you get situated and grounded, you begin to explore, and you put an itinerary together, and you say, well, I want to go here. I want to check this out. I want to check that out. That's what this album is. And it'll bring you through a whirlwind of feelings and sounds and emotions. And one of the tracks right now, which is available on YouTube, because it's going to be part of the album, I wanted to kind of sneak the trailer video called You Are Jesus. It just shows how Jesus is present in our everyday life. God is there in our everyday life. And these are everyday situations. And it seems to resonate with everyone around the world because, being a Christian, being a musician, that's part of my job is to get the word out there through music. And I know this album, Lighthouse, it's even more so close to my heart because I lost my dad in 2021 due to COVID-related issues. So my dad always loved lighthouses. So this takes on an even bigger meaning.
Man, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your dad. Was he into music as well? Because your grandfather, I read in the Bible that he did a lot of great things with the organ. He even started a little center, or what was it that he started? It was an organ thing that he started in Connecticut. Can you share with that?
Yeah, he started the Connecticut Valley Theater Organ Society, at a very young age, I'm watching these artists who are big in the theater organ realm. I mean, we're talking people that were recorded and performed and did things before there was actual television. There was this background music that was on the radio and very early TV and soap operas. Organ music was a big thing. In the 1950s and 60s, if you had a home, you probably had a piano, an organ, or both in it.
Right.
So my grandfather played by ear, but had 13 organs in his home. And it was absolutely crazy growing up and going there. And my mom and my dad both had, an amazing and eclectic background in music, everything from Elvis Presley to the Chambers Brothers to doo-wop to early rock and roll to just the standard Christian music. I mean, there was always music playing in our house, and there was not just having the thought of my parents say, turn that down. That never existed. We always were constantly blasting music, playing music. And, when you have a childhood like that, you go, you really got to count your blessings because you learn a lot through music and you bond through music. And that's why I am not stuck into one particular artist or one genre. It all transcends through me.
So yeah, that's awesome about your granddad with all those organs because like you said, he not only played by ear, but he formed the first amateur society in Connecticut, CVTOS, the Connecticut Valley Theater Organ Society. Now, knowing that your parents were both into music heavily and they played throughout the house, did either one of them, your father, your mom, did they play an instrument, or was it really your granddad that introduced you to music?
I mean, that's hard to say because my parents probably from a very early age, always had. There was, like I said, there was always music going, in the background. So no matter what we were doing, or whether we're in the car, there was and they listen to good music. It's funny because I know what's good music. Good music to me has a groove, has soul, has a great melody, and just everything that encompasses a good song. So when I felt that, and I wanted to to be able to reproduce that, of course, my grandfather was there, and then being able to play and do, and also play duets and do things with him, and get involved in the whole, theater organ realm. It was just, it really was surreal. Again, my mom and dad were and I know looking down, they're still my biggest fans, and a lot of what I've recorded, a lot of those songs and a lot of those artists are the people that I was brought to through my parents at a very young age. And, when you look back, you go, would I do it all over again in a heartbeat? And that's why, with the technology and everything that we have now and at our disposal, and the talent, and, not only in this country, but, abroad, it's just so great to work with new people, develop new sounds, and have a worldwide platform in which to deliver.
Once again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, James A. Norkawich. You can go to his website, jamesanorkawich.com. And I kind of said at the very beginning of the intro, but he also had experience being, in the broadcasting world. And if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about that chapter in your life. And did that kind of, help you learn some things with audio?
Yeah, it's funny because when I completed my first 4 years of college, and I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which was about an hour and a half right outside of New York City. So I took a job at WQHT, and that was, of course, that's when the early days of hip hop, freestyle, R&B, you name it, we did it. And then from there went to Z100, which, of course, during that time as well, from the late 90s to the early 2000s, 2001, and, September 11th in New York City, we were the voice for a suffering nation. We were at the epicenter of, we didn't know what to say, getting in the studio. It's like, you didn't know what to say or what to do. And, and we knew life wasn't going to be the same. But then after being at either one of those radio stations for a couple of years, then ended up at WQCD CD 101.9, which was a jazz station, and doing overnights and being able to interview some of my jazz heroes and people that I didn't know that I would have the opportunity to work with. However, it was just a pleasure and a great format, to work with them. And then, of course, pop radio in Connecticut and Pennsylvania. And then I had a platform that doesn't exist any longer. But before online platforms and podcasts, there was a site called stickem.com. And I had over 1 year of doing shows, radio-based programs with live video. Had amassed roughly about 6.1 million viewers in 1 year. And it was just crazy. I mean, it allowed people to come into my world and take my background and my musical tastes and my show, which was I was more the love songs based, called Radio Romance. Radio Romance. I say that 3 times, and it was and still is. You again sharing that love for music in a different way. I mean, it's one thing to play it, but it's another thing to play to other people who may not know a particular artist, but this artist inspires me, and this artist inspires me, and they do this here and there, and it's like to be able to share that with people is it's really cool.
Yeah, creates meaning. They learn what moved you, and now it moves them. So, yeah, that's the power of sharing. So, when you look into what you're doing with your music career, you mentioned how your dad likes lighthouses. Was he someone that had like a painting of a lighthouse? Because I remember growing up, I used to see, a painting, lighthouse, somewhere in church or, grandparents' house, whatever. Did he like a painting of lighthouses, or he just in general, like lighthouses?
There was I mean, my dad, since we grew up, want to say 4 or 5 miles from Long Island Sound, right? There we have a lighthouse which is synonymous to the city that we grew up in, and my father grew up in the same city. So he as a kid, you were able to walk out on the on the rocks and go out to the lighthouse, and so I think the lighthouse not only brought memories of of one's childhood, but when my father as a family, we are our place in the church, our faith, I could just remember growing up, and it's now a collection of lighthouses. I have my dad's collection, but probably the very first lighthouse was just like one of those old fashioned Avon decanters. That was a lighthouse that my mom had gotten my dad, and then from there on forward, I mean, there was always a representation. And I can recall probably in the last maybe 15, 20 years, my sister had purchased a nightlight lighthouse, and that had scripture on it. And that's really what inspired me, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, to even think about writing one song, or having something that's something related to the ocean or lighthouses or water. And I have to say, now it's taken on a whole new meaning, because lighthouse means more to me than just a figure or a building with, that's an actual lighthouse shining over the water. And there's so many more elements now. Maybe because I'm getting old, but
no, I think that what you share about your dad too, it is something that's very close home. You said in the beginning, it's like a symbol of bringing you back home. So I feel like this is a very personal, special project for you. So wrapping this up, people know that they can expect to hear your new music in August. Lighthouse album will be ready for people to listen to. When you work on, marketing like you're doing right now, you pushing this out there, what do you hope people can take away from this project? Because it sounds like this project is going to be a very, special project for you.
No one has ever asked me that before. I'm glad you did. It's really about self-reflection, reflection into yourself. If you're a man and you're married or you're single, you need to look at who you are, examine, every parameter of who you are and what you do. And none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, but, if you're not a Christian, it's an opportunity, it's a perfect opportunity to take a listen and see what the scripture is and what these songs mean and what they say and what they represent. It opens that conversation because, we as men, more than often don't share our feelings, I guess this society says, you need to repress everything that you're feeling. And, we live in a world now where we can share with others how we're feeling. We can, share through music, share through, anything, any arts related, even sports. But with this album, I want people to look at it as a source of inspiration, as a source of reflection, and as a source of worship in so many different ways. Because I'll wait till that goes. I also find that, we often need something to actually be able to hold on to listen to. And I really feel with this, this album and this project, that it'll give that comfort, it'll give that guide, that direction, for anyone in any stage, of life. And a lot can be said instrumentally, a lot can be said with instruments and vocals. And so I'm also hoping to change the landscape of how people hear and people discover music such as this. This is something that really nobody really has done, and very excited to see where it goes.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, James A. Norkawich, and go to his website, jamesanorkawich.com, and also his album Lighthouse is coming out in August. And man, like you said, home, like the famous saying, home is where the heart is. So I feel like the heart is all in this project, man. So hopefully people will take it and run with it. So once again, I want to say thanks to you, James, talking to us. I
appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Like we say, keep God first, stay focused, and peace, man. I haven't said that in a while. I had to say that today.
Thank you.